Blog Talk Radio.
Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And in the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I see aspiring to be free. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Within and without, above and below, yeah. East, west, north and south, I sense your presence. Without and within, below and above, yeah, yeah. East, west, north and south, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I find in tune with the divine. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. For to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, holy angel of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence.
Thank you for joining me here on Activating Compassion Radio. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I'm your hostess today. The music you were just listening to at the beginning of the show is I Sense Your Presence. It's by Shem Shai, and I do encourage you to check out their music, by the way. They're a great group that musicians performing that I met originally in the Sedona, Arizona area. And you can check out more of their work at www.shemshai.com. That's SHIMSHAI.com. And I just want to extend a welcome to you, whether you're returning because you've listened to the show before and you enjoy what we're doing here, or whether you're joining in to us for the very first time today. We are streaming live, by the way, in 3 additional places: TalkStream Live, StreamFinder, and PEN, also known as Pair Encounters Network. I welcome everybody listening through there as well, in addition to those that are catching our podcast through TuneIn.com and iTunes, as well as on our YouTube version today. And, you know, if you're hearing a little extra noise in the background, it's because I'm coming to you from a Starbucks this morning, believe it or not. And I just have to plug the people here. This is the old Peachtree and Satellite location in Duluth, Georgia. And some of you may know that I'm on tour right now in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And so we're broadcasting from here. And I have to say, this team is just rocking it in the Compassion Department. And I have to give them credit for that. Here they come in real early in the morning, and they've been smiling all day, regardless of whether they had 20 people in the line or 2 people in the line. And so I just have to give them that little plug. And I know not everybody's a big Starbucks fan out there, but they do some good stuff along the way, too. So I have to give a hats off to their team and just acknowledge them for a moment. Anyways, here at Activating Compassion Radio, what I do is look at different ways that compassion exists in our lives, how to remove our blocks, resistances, frustrations, and more. And some weeks I'm discussing different aspects of how compassion is in our life, how it affects our lives, and the different areas of compassion. And then some weeks I'm doing more exercises and practical implementations along the way. Also, many times I've got guests on the show, like today I've got a fantastic guest lined up for you, Lorraine Cohen, and she's going to be sharing some really interesting work, and she's got a really great exercise that she's going to be sharing with us later in the show. So definitely stay tuned for that, and, and that's going to be something that you're going to want to share with other people as well. In addition to that, I highlight different musical artists along the way. That includes Stephen Halpern, Peter Cater, Jill Matson, Claire Hedin, Bruce Ciccarelli, Craig Corollas, Harold Bramstaff Moses, all people doing some incredible work. And I have more that will be coming up along the way also. And very, very excited about what we have going on here right now, because we're kind of shaking it up these days. You know, sometimes I've got stuff, sometimes I'm doing my own show. So it's really fun. You never quite know what you're going to get into with us these days. And I'm loving that. I'm loving that variety. Now, in my own work, what I do is I focus on helping people find and use compassion in their everyday lives. And I've created the Genesis Clearing Statement, which, if you've missed that, you can catch that in some of the archived shows. And I've also authored 4 books, the most recent being You, Me, Life Dreams, and its companion workbook. And then my first 2 books, Activating Compassion and its companion workbook. In addition, I've created the Compassion Tour, which is a multi-state nationwide tour, including workshops, retreats, seminars, book signing events, and fundraising events. And yes, there are still events going on, even on the 2014 tour right now. Like I said, I'm kind of finishing out this week here in the Atlanta, Georgia region, and then I'm going to be heading on out to San Antonio. So any of you that are out that way, you can certainly catch up with me. I'll be doing private sessions. I'll be doing a thought song event, a healing event out there, and I'm actually checking out the possibility of some things in Southern California in December. So stay tuned for those possibilities, and then I'll be getting ready to line up 2015, which right now I'm looking at possibly including Canada in that this year. So very, very excited about what we have going on. Now, just a reminder, if you enjoyed the show today, make certain that you tell your friends, share it with those people out there on Facebook and your social media and family and people like that, because I always find that when I'm sharing things, the people will come back and they'll go, oh, my gosh, I so needed this right now. And we never know. Sometimes we think we know what's happening in everybody's life, but we don't know. And that one little share could just change something that they're dealing with on a personal level, or maybe even a bigger scope than that. And it could be just the right tool to help them out. And they can come in at the same link you used to get into the show and listen to it in our archive. Or they can also go to my website, which is another place you can find all the workshops, events, the Compassion Tour that's going on. And that is Jessie Ann Nichols George, the1.com. So it's my full name, the1.com. They can check it out there. In addition, they'll have the option of getting the podcast through iTunes, tunein.com, and then usually these days it's taking about 1 to 2 weeks to get it up. After the show airs, they can also find it on my YouTube channel as well. So whatever their preference is, they've got an option for it. Now, before we get started on everything today, and if you're hearing me a little bit stuffy, I am a little bit stuffy today, so I apologize for that. But it's amazing when you travel and you tour and you're very active in your processes, how things automatically clear, and you don't always know when they're going to clear on you. And so I actually started a little sinus clearing yesterday, and it's all good. It's part of a big transition. I've heard that I have a lot of wonderful successes coming my way, and I see that, and I've had a lot of people sharing that with me, and it doesn't surprise. And I'm sharing this connection because I know a lot of people have sinus issues that come up on them, and one of the things that most people don't realize with it is that it's connected to their root chakra. And, of course, our root chakra is connected to our relationships, our finances, whether we feel grounded in the world, whether we're able to manifest things in the world. And so that's a very interesting piece. And it's just very interesting for me because yesterday was my 50th birthday. And and I've never had to deal with something like that on my birthday, but it's all good. It's all fun. And, it's exciting. And I have to say this is one of those things that I was looking back at the different times in my life and reflecting, and I was remembering when I turned 30, and 30 was, I think, the traumatic year when you're going through your first Saturn return and things. And then, after 30, and I kind of got past that fact of, oh, my God, I'm getting older. And then I hit 40, and 40 was, not as bad as 30, definitely, but it was that point, that turning point in your life where you go, oh, my goodness, I actually need to kind of start taking responsibility more in my life. And then, here I am at 50, and I have to say 50 was actually a very gentle birthday. Other than a little bit of sinus stuffiness, it was a very gentle birthday for me. So I'm very excited to see what's coming in from this point out. And it looks like it's all good stuff. So excited to see what happens. Now, before we get started on everything, those that have listened in before you do know that I like to delve into a little book called The 72 Names of God by Yehuda Burke, who is a Kabbalah master. And I love Yehuda's work because he takes the big complex stuff, he puts it into the everyday language, and really brings it into something that is workable for us. And the message that he has today is called The Big Picture, and that's the common name of God that we're dealing with today. And the message starts off as, when we want to grasp what life is really all about, these letters give us the big picture, which always includes the blessings that are hidden in the obstacles and challenges that confront us. And, it always amazes me how these messages connect with it, because it's certainly connecting for me today. And the insight that he gives on this is, and I have to say this is one of my favorite stories because I use this a lot in looking at helping people see the interrelationship of things. A small girl sees an apple seed for the first time. She is not sure what to make of it. One day, she sees her father burying the seed in the ground. Then a tree grows, bearing bright red, shiny apples. From now on, when the girl sees a seed, she also sees the tree hidden within it. One day, the girl picks an apple from the tree, and within it she discovers a bunch of apple seeds. Now, when she looks at an apple seed, she perceives the tree, the apple, the new seeds, and even the many future apple trees that will one day come into being. All this is understood in one moment, simply by glancing at one tree. This is how wisdom really works. It's easy to get stuck in the details of life and to miss the big picture. We perform actions without any regard to their future consequences. But as the apple is contained in the seed, every effect that materializes in our life has origin in a prior action performed by us. Seeing the big picture means learning to become the creators of our own fulfillment, to realize that the light is the source of all joy, and to settle for nothing less. It means grasping the purpose behind a problem and the potential light that awaits us when we proactively confront our problem. And the meditation that he gives on this is, this saying raises your awareness of the long-term effects of all your actions. You see the big picture of the spiritual challenges in every moment before they can become the foundations of chaos and crisis. And I find this is a really big thing because we are in a time where the law of consequence is speeding up on us. It's not as delayed as it used to be. And when we look at these things, the more we can stop and be aware of that moment and to stop and perceive what is coming from the moment that we're creating, we can really have a much greater influence on shifting our life into a direction that we really can love and enjoy along the way. Now, again, the common name on this is the big picture, and the formal name of God on this one is Aleph Nun Yud, and that is going to be up on my page of the Main Street Universe tab on my website, JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. So you can always go back and read it there throughout the week. It'll be posted for a whole week until next Friday when we run the next show, and you can just catch it there. Now, a little more lead-in, a little thought before we head off on break and bring our guests back in to get started into the show today, which I'm so excited about having this guest on. And that is it really possible to be both powerful and graceful? And how about being authentic at the same time? When you look at yourself and or others, are these the attributes you see, or is there only one of them in place? When I look at this combination of qualities, it is something that I seek to represent in my work. Without this total package, it feels unbalanced and superficial to me. If I'm authentic without power and grace, then I'm sitting in the area of lacking trust and confidence. When I display power without grace, something evident earlier in my years, it can be easy to powerhouse over others, leaving them feeling threatened or attacked, and myself full of judgment and lacking consideration. If authenticity is missing, I feel no draw to connect with someone that is not authentic in what they present. Through the years, I am happy to have found a balance of these attributes so that they can work in harmony. It seems that when I stand in this space, that everything that I need shows up in my life. This also seems that it will be a combination of factors that is going to be necessary for those that are really going to make an impact on others in a way that fosters growth, self-thinking, and loving transformation. This very well could be the new power play. Lorraine Cohen has been focusing on helping others get into the space for decades now, and her heart-centered approach also encourages being honest. Don't hold back. Say it like you are seeing or feeling it. And I think to myself, how interesting our world would be if everyone was truly honest and stood in this space. In some ways, it would be a huge relief to know the truth from others, albeit there may be a few hurt feelings or more appropriately wounded egos along the way. However, I also think it would be really refreshing. I would much rather have someone tell me they don't like something than to pacify me. Recently, I had a friend who is very good with speaking his mind come to me and express frustration with how I was interacting with him. And he wanted more from me, and it made me ponder my need to make possible changes. Then my defenses went up, and so many want me to sit around talking with them personally, and there just isn't enough hours in my day to accommodate everyone that wants this from me, even if I gave up my work. and there's no way for me to provide this. Not to mention the need to handle my own needs while living on the road. On top of that, where do I start deciding who gets my attention and who doesn't? And this places me in a position of judging others, which just doesn't interest me. Of course, I understand all the different dynamics that play into this, but I'm sharing this as I know that many others are experiencing similar things in their life. And so I return to my space of allowing them to express, accepting what they decide, even if that includes going their own way, honoring myself, and sometimes having to remind them that they are not the only ones that would like my attention in my life. And this can lead to wounded egos when they discover that they do not have a higher priority than others do. And it is this very aspect of stopping and connecting with myself in an authentic power and grace that sees me through. Where are these components in your life? You take the time to be conscious of them within and working together as a team. And what would your world be like if you operated from this space of authentic power and grace? This week, our guest focuses on a component of compassion that is related to the aspects in my book of give me, give me, give me. And this reminds us that when we stand in our power with grace and authenticity, you will be able to receive more than you give. I'm going to take a short break, and when we return, I will have Lorraine Cohen with us, and she's going to be discussing her work in authentic power and peace. And the song that I've actually got two songs for you during our break, and the first one that I have for you is called Sit in Pain, and the second one is called There Is an Ache. And we will be back in just a minute, or a few minutes.
Hidden pain rises again. Confusion sets in as my joy tears away. The conflict starts with tugs in my heart. This love filled with aching, it rips me apart. This love filled with aching. This love filled with aching, it rips me apart. And I see it smiling, I yearn for your touch. I want you to want me, I want you so much. Arms wrap around me, they're pulling me in. I lose all my senses, I want to give in. I lose all my senses. But when you're gone, your love pulled away. The love I was safe in did not choose to stay. Love gone, love pulled away. The love I was safe in did not choose to stay. The love I was safe in. The love I was safe in. There is an ache that's deep inside, hollowness that I find hard to hide. I sit alone and I am in the dark. Sunlight shines, but it can't find the mark. each other free. But when we talk, we can't communicate. There's so much love, it just gets in the way. If we could just be still, perhaps we'd see that we fit each other perfectly. There is this ache that's deep inside, a hollowness that's hard to hide. I sit alone and I am in the dark. The sunlight shines and it can't hit that
This is Lorraine. I am on the host line. I'm not sure if we lost Jessie's Wi-Fi connection in Starbucks. So I'm just going to give her just a little bit more time to see.
Here we go. I'm sorry about that, everybody. Here we go. Sorry about that little pause on here. And welcome back to Activating Compassion Radio. It always helps when you unmute the mic button, right? On there. Boy, it's challenging me today. Maybe 50 is more challenging than I thought it was. Okay. And just to remind you, you were listening to the songs by Claire Hedin, A Hidden Pain, and There Is an Ache. And you can check out more of her work at www.clairehedin.com. That's CLAREHEDIN.com. And I would like to go ahead and bring on my guest today, Lorraine Cohen. She is the CEO and founder of Powerful Living. She is an internationally recognized life strategist, soul guide, and minister and healer. Lorraine is a powerful, inspirational speaker, teacher, and charismatic broadcast personality where she uses her extraordinary spiritual and intuitive gifts to support spiritual women who want to make a difference in the world but are blocked by stories of not being good enough and want to find their way back to their truest self. She has worked with thousands of women worldwide for approximately 30 years who value the inner journey and have the courage and passion to go deeper, to follow a higher calling, and to live a life that is awake and authentic, and to create a reality that is conscious, deliberate, and meaningful. As a popular broadcaster, Lorraine hosts the compelling Conversations for Powerful Living series on personal and spiritual topics. She is a sought-after public speaker, media guest, and workshop leader engaging audiences worldwide. In addition, she is a co-author on the upcoming book, Embraced by the Divine, The Emerging Women's Gateway to Power, Passion, and Purpose. And you can learn more about Lorraine's work at www.lorrainecohen.com. And let me go ahead and get her mic opened up so we'll be able to hear her as well. And Lorraine, welcome to Activating Compassion Radio.
Thank you so much, Jessie. And, this is such a great opportunity as I am commending you on your resilience of finding locations to be able to plug in. These are great opportunities for me and probably all of us to look at our relationship with surrendering, letting go, and going with the process of life as it unfolds, don't you think?
Most definitely, and it has been quite a learning experience that way, that you just surrender, and it reminds us that, we have so many more resources at our hands than what we realize sometimes. And if we just look for them, if we just open our eyes a little bit, they're there. It may not always be the most ideal situation, but they're definitely workable, and it definitely still allows things to happen.
I agree, and it's also a great opportunity to look at how attached we become to the picture of the way we want things to work out, and when they don't, how we move into resistance and judgment, and we may miss the learning nugget that's coming with the process. And so I'm having that experience with you right now, so thank you.
I'm so glad I can be this catalyst, because everybody goes, I'm living vicariously through you being on the road all the time now, and it's so fun in a way. And for me, it's a natural place to be. I love going into a new place every week. Whether you're stationed somewhere or whether you're traveling, you've got challenges that you're going to deal with. There's pros and cons in each, and it's very exciting to be doing this at this point in my life. And if anybody had said, at 50 years old, you're going to go hit the road in a vehicle with a cat, and that's going to be your life to get your message into the world, I would have said, are you crazy?
Me too.
You're very right. If you decide to block the lesson in the process, it's because the judgments are coming up and the fears are coming up. And I know this is something that you deal a lot with in your work, Lorraine, and that's something that I really want to get into, because your work isn't necessarily for everybody. I know that, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and how you got into doing the things that you're doing, just to kind of give our listeners a foundation to work with and go from.
That's a great place to start, Jessie. I have, as I look back over my life and realize that I have had a certain level of consciousness from a very, very early age. And when I was in my early 30s, and a lot of people ask me, was there a pivotal point in your life where things really started to shift? And for me, it was the oncoming illness of my mother, who was diagnosed with leukemia, and she ultimately died when I was about 32 years old, and that was in 1982. And that experience was very powerful because it caused me to, as it does for so many other people when we're faced with something that is heartbreaking, we start asking questions. What is this all about? What am I here for? What's the purpose of all this? Why did this happen? Why? And I started on my own deeper journey of asking those questions, and unbeknownst to me, a very deep surprise, I started to embark on a much deeper spiritual path, which was really not what I had intended. I was just looking to get answers about what had happened with my mother. And my life started to fall apart at that time, and I was living in New York. I lost my job. I started to go into a very deep depression. My father was not doing well. It was really, in my mind, it was a question of time before he would eventually want to be with my mother, because I couldn't see him wanting to live without her. And during this particular time, I found myself really falling apart in some very deep ways, and I had what I can only describe as a spiritual earthquake. And in a vision, I saw myself standing in rubble. All of the walls that I was used to protecting myself with had crumbled, and it was terrifying. I realized that I was full of crap. I had been hiding behind a lot of postures, a lot of lies, and what was the most terrifying was I had the idea that I was a total stranger to myself, and I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what was real. I didn't know what I could trust, and I didn't know what I could trust about any thought that I had. And it was the first time in my life, Jesse, that I actually fell to my knees and prayed to God. And what I said is, dear God, please help me. Please don't let me ever live in that darkness again. I don't care what it's going to take. I have to know who I am. And it's been an incredible journey. You know, a lot of times when you're in that level of despair and you put out a prayer, you don't really understand what that prayer really means. And things just continue to just break open. I found myself reading Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb, which for many people was a huge door opening. And living in New York, the medium that she talked about was coming to New York. I was very fortunate to be able to be in his presence for a private lecture and met some incredible people who became my spiritual family for many years. And it was a series of doors and windows opening and just literally consuming as much information as I could at that time, because in the 1980s, the resources and the availability and the conversations were not as numerous and plentiful as we find right now. But when I look back, I can see how beautifully I was guided step by step to move through different levels of understanding, to connect with the right people and the right resources, and then ultimately found myself leaving New York and moving to Pennsylvania about 30 years ago and embarking on my own business, which is not anything I ever could have imagined that I would be doing, and found myself working in a recovery center for many, many years. One of the most incredible, humbling experience of working with that population and seeing the capacity of the human spirit, also learning so much about myself, becoming a spiritual minister, and it's just really been following my guidance and walking through those doors and letting myself break apart and going deep and finding out what the truth is. And it's been the most painful, heartbreaking, exhilarating, liberating, exciting ride I have ever been on. And I am so grateful to have been waking up during this time and continuing to understand who I am, to continuing to access my power and to walk hand in hand with the close relationship that I have with the divine, and to be able to be a vehicle, to be of service to humanity's awakening. It's a humbling and a gratifying and a heart-opening, heartbreaking, exhilarating experience.
You know, you bring up so many good points, Lorraine, about that path, and I love that you brought up, you know, when I made this statement, I had no idea what I was getting into. And I think that's oftentimes what happens when we're ready to surrender to a process or discovery about ourselves, is we really don't, a lot of times when we're asking something, have any clue what we're really asking or saying. we think we do in the moment, but as it unfolds and you go through this process, that's where you start to learn what you've really asked for and what you're really getting into. And, you brought it up that there were all these different emotions, and I kind of liken that to like going onto a roller coaster for the very first time. It's scary, but you're going to go really deep into it, and once it gets going, you're not necessarily going to jump off. And, you have to kind of see it through until you get back to the stopping point, and you're going to get jerked around a little bit, and you might get bruised up a little bit along the way, but, there's going to be a lot of fun in it as well. And,
yes.
Another piece that you brought up in this that is very interesting to me is that, so many times I talk about the influence of what happened to us at the age of 4 having on our life, because that's such a huge programming time for us. But you brought up another aspect, that a lot of the stuff that put you on your path happened in your early 30s, at 32. And it's very interesting because that's the time of your first Saturn return. And a lot of people don't understand about that Saturn return, and it's not a total surprise to me to hear you say, well, this is when it went down, because Saturn returns can bring death in family. It can bring these hardships. That's usually when our life is going to be very upheaved tremendously and completely changed. And that's usually also when we get very real and very open to say, okay, show me what to do. And we start surrendering to the process in that time frame. And it is a time where we discover lies and truths and processes, and where we start making ourselves vulnerable to learn.
I was not aware of the fact that there was a Saturn return at that time. I have heard in conversations with some people that they have found around their mid-30s or early 30s, there's been this breaking open period. So that's interesting to me to hear those 2 points that clarifies some things. Now, I know that my sister has expressed such a desire to follow the kind of path that I'm on, but she never chose to do that because she was too scared. And that's another reason why I think it's so important when we talk about this journey, having so many different emotions and so many different experiences, that we are actually creating and attracting the experiences that will best serve us in having the breakthroughs that they want. I know for me that some of my experiences have been in very high drama because I can be a tough broad. I can be a bit of a hard head. And there have been times when I have really been fighting, as many of us have. There's so many messages about, you have to fight for things, you have to push, you have to you have to do whatever it takes, and there's this very male energy of forcing life. And certainly I have been on my own for a lot of years and have depended upon myself to make things happen, or so I thought. And when you start to get on this spiritual path and you understand that there is so much support, not only in physical form but in spiritual form, that is collaborating on your behalf to help you to create the most incredible life that you can ever imagine, it can be difficult to let go and allow that path of grace to really guide you because of so much distrust. So these experiences that can bring you to your knees, a friend of mine had said to me recently, do you think that you're having all of this difficulty because you have created it? You've created experiences to exhaust you so that you will finally surrender. I started to laugh because I had that thought maybe an hour before. I am exhausted, I was thinking. So finally Lorraine is going to let go so that we can rush in and we can help her. And we can not realize that we're doing that because we think that we're helping, but we're exerting so much effort to try to make things happen that we're actually creating more blocks. And we're not really coming from a place of power when we do that. We're coming from a place of fear and desperation. That's not authentic power.
And it's interesting that you bring that, and I think that happens with a lot of people where we have to get so worn down by something that we finally go, okay, what is it, And I have to laugh at myself, too, in that process because, I think of how many times my angels or the divine is out there going, I just want to give you this really amazing life, and you won't stop long enough to receive it. And this whole birthday for me, because I was looking at all the influences and everything, and all the influences are about receiving now. So it's like, I was so excited yesterday when I first got up. I'm like, yes, I'm starting this phase of receiving. And then I was like, what's the sinus thing? And it's like, you're supposed to, and now that you're talking, I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to be receiving more rest. I'm supposed to be receiving more, it's this very thing. Look, we're going to put you down long enough so that you'll receive things. And you talk about the high drama, hard-headed combination, and boy, I can relate to that in my younger years because I was extremely hard-headed, and I was always in these high-drama situations going on in my life. It seemed like it was never ending. As soon as you get through one, you get a little moment of peace, and then the next thing I know, the next big drama would start up. And that's such a great tool that when you have somebody like yourself put these pieces together, that we just stop and we take heed to that, and we go, okay, I've got high drama going on in my life, so what am I being hard-headed about? And it brings us back to ourselves. And I like you say, that listening, that coming back around, saying, what do you want to tell me? And I think if we can get back to that point and make those connections, we're only going to get the extremes if we're living in an extreme.
Yeah. There's also another point that's very, very timely that I've been starting to talk about, Jesse, and I want to get back to that point about creating high drama. For many, many people, there's a lot of drama and a lot of struggle around money, and money is this incredible metaphor that represents so many things for people: security, status, freedom, ease, grace, success. And there are so many messages about money, and for people who are finding themselves having some difficulty, which can even happen even when you have a lot of money, you don't necessarily feel a sense of security because there can be a fear that you could lose it at any time. And in a conversation that I was having with a colleague recently, I had a light bulb moment, and we were talking about so many ways in which we use money as a means of not feeling good about ourselves, dealing with lack of self-value, focusing on where we have lack and scarcity, and all the different beliefs that we have about that. And when you start doing some of the inner work, those are places that are really viable to look at. The beliefs that you have about that, your ability to love and value yourself, all of those are very viable. And then you probably start looking at some of the programs out there that generate wealth, and you can get to a point where you've been doing well, but there's kind of a ceiling that you hit. And what came up in this conversation was, what if what you're really bumping up against after doing so much work for so long, not to say that there isn't any more that might bubble up, but what if it's almost like having an addiction to struggle where you continue to create struggle and high drama. And in doing so, you're throwing more and more roadblocks in your path because you won't really let yourself experience life any other way because that becomes your comfort zone. So it's hard to really stand in a place of authentic power, which is really about coming from a place of love, when your pattern of living is one that is infused with fear, and it is being caused at a very deep level of your tendency towards creating struggle. So if things get too easy, you've got to throw some drama and some struggle in there so that it feels normal, and yet you still find yourself creating more suffering. And it's an interesting cycle that I'm just starting to talk about with a lot of clients that are just getting, their minds are getting blown because they've never looked at it from that point. They've looked at it more as money blocks rather than, I'm using the word addiction to creating struggle.
And you brought up some very, very good points on that, Lorraine, because a lot of people don't realize that money is tied to the other areas of security and status and grace and success and love and value of yourself, and that's really, that addiction piece has got to be the biggest addiction there is, over anything else in this world, is that addiction to struggle. As human beings, we have a natural addiction. It's like being born with that addiction, just like somebody's born with an addiction to alcohol or drugs or things like that. As a human race, we're born into that addiction to struggle. And I've looked at that in the past as well myself, and I find that addiction is based on, it's all again tied into this root chakra stuff, which is why I think my sinuses are clearing right now, because I'm clearing all this stuff up right now. And, it comes down to, as you said, self-value, in the sense that we have a need to prove to ourselves that we can overcome these different challenges. And our ego might say, oh, no, I don't. But in reality, it's also our ego that is going, come on, show me you can do it. Look, I can do this, I can overcome this and that. So then we create it to overcome it, to go, look at how strong I am. Look at what I've overcome in this world. As opposed to just going, hey, why don't I just enjoy it a little bit?
Right. And these messages that we've all grown up with, no pain, no gain, life is hard. If you want anything to really happen, you have to work your butt off. Nothing comes easily. And when we talk about in this new energy, this auspicious time that we're living in, when you approach it from that perspective, it's really approaching life with a sense of distrust, and there's no mention of a divine hand of grace in there anywhere, or any partnership. And for me, and here's another prayer that I put out, as I've told this to people, their eyes have rolled. I put out a prayer about 3 years ago to be shown how to live an unshakable faith and trust. Okay, your eyes rolling on that one? So
I've had to have a lot of trust on this path over the last couple of months. So. Yeah.
So that really opened up doors for quite a wild ride, and I almost lost my house, and I ran into debt, and I was able to victoriously walk through 2 cancer diagnoses with minimal medical intervention and none of the protocols that were suggested. I allowed my guidance and my trust and doing some deeper inner healing work on faith and forgiveness to be the source of how I wanted to move through these experiences, and the blessings that have come, the grace that has come. And I know that you can understand that, because while you're on tour, you're having firsthand experience of seeing how things are coming to you effortlessly. It's not about how hard you're working and how hard you are pushing. And this is a real shift that we're in right now, of standing in that place of authentic power and That's about standing in love and standing in integrity and in faith and in trust. And you can't really know what that's like until you let go and you explore what that's like. And to recognize all the different forms and shapes and messages that the universe, when I say the universe, I'm talking God, soul, whatever your language is, all the ways in which your prayers are heard, sometimes even in advance of your even putting those prayers or needs out, that help comes from a variety of different directions. And until you are willing to put yourself in that hot seat, you will stay scared because you will never know how loved and supported you are. That has been how my prayers have been answered. I'm still working on it. I haven't mastered this yet, but I am so far from where I was, which is really wonderful.
I think it's an ongoing lesson in the human life, and you talk about the program messages, and that is such a huge thing. And where does that come from? That comes from those that would like to control us. Well, we're going to tell you what's hard to have, but the natural flow of things, it is not hard to have at all. The natural flow is very easy. So if we're willing to sit on the hot seat, we'll find the natural flow of things in there, and we find that love and trust. And when we buy into the program messages that it is this hard, it is that difficult, and then we try to create from that, as you were mentioning, what we're trying to create from the space of deprivation, and that doesn't work. We can't create from deprivation of things. We have to create from abundance, and that's not reliant on how much money you have, because there's a lot of people who have, say, a lot of finances sitting in their account, but they keep losing it or other things because they're still coming from this deprivation. They still feel empty. They still feel these other things going on. I joke around and I say, man, I never knew how abundant I was until I moved into a vehicle. And I feel like I have so much stuff around me that it's like, wow, look at all the stuff I have, and I couldn't say that in a 2,300 square foot home. So it's interesting how it shifts.
Yes, it shifts your perspective, and you made a point about, people who may find themselves in a very affluent and very abundant experience. There was a book that came my way many, many years ago, and it was written by the folks at Canyon Ranch, and the book is called What Happy People Know, and it starts out by telling a story about a man who is very, very wealthy and appeared to have everything that you can imagine to have a glorious life, and he came to Canyon Ranch because he was on the verge of suicide. And it's how we perceive other people's lives oftentimes when we're not feeling good about our own lives, and we think, oh, I wish my life was like this person and they seem to be so happy. And I think that's the important word, is they seem to be. We don't know what's going on in people's lives. And we've all come here to master different things, and somebody may not have come into this life to master wealth. They may have come into this life to master compassion or forgiveness. So the comparisons can be very, very confusing and very diminishing to our own experiences. I have really come to understand and to own that I am creating my experiences. There's no one and there's nothing to blame for how I'm moving through my life, and to see those experiences as appreciation of my incredible brilliance, to create it in a form that will get my attention in a way that will offer me the greatest opportunity for me to break through and be who I am meant to be. So for any of you listening, if you are looking at your life and feeling that you have a lot of hardship, or you're looking at some things that you don't like, please take a moment to acknowledge your own brilliance at creating and manifesting the perfect opportunity to help you master something that you came in here to experience. Bravo to you.
You just have so many good points that you keep coming up with that
Well, you know who's talking, don't you?
Sometimes, we really aren't meant to have an abundance of money in a particular lifetime because that may not be what we came in to work on or to do. And does that mean that we have to suffer financially? No. But if we look at the aspect of, if we learn the lessons that we're here to learn, if we focus on those different pieces, then we're going to get the rest of it. The rest of it just falls into place. And you talk about this love and trust thing, and, for me that tied in a piece of when you're, and it ties into a lot of what you said, if you're willing to let go of what you're desiring, you'll receive it. So it's like you have to be willing to let go of having material possessions, for example, in order to receive them. And that doesn't mean you have to go live on the streets and suffer or that type of thing, but you have to be willing to let go of having it. And I've learned that about a lot of things in my life. I have to let go of having to have love in my life, and then I receive it. I have to let go of learning to have money in my life, and then it comes to me. So, we kind of remove the resistance when we do that, in a sense, I think.
What I would add, just as a clarification, because I think this would be helpful, it's the attachment to having it. It's the attachment to needing it, where we think that we're actually letting something go when we haven't let it go. And when we think about wanting to get clear about what it is that we really, really want, and that's a tough question that can be difficult to answer, because it invites you to get very honest about what it is that is important. And it's a question that I ask my clients, and it's a question that I look at periodically during the course of the year. What is it that I really, really, really want? And sometimes the answers are within your comfort zone because you're not really giving yourself permission to say what it is that you really, really want. And the invitation there is to be clear as you can be, to articulate it, to embrace it and to own it, and to then let it go so that you're not attached to whether it happens or not or how it will happen, so that you can then be in the experience of just joyfully going through your day and being open to however the day unfolds, knowing that your prayer, your desire, your dream is out there in the universe. It's been heard. Pay attention to what you feel guided to do inspirationally during the course of your day, and just allow your soul to guide you. And that's how I've been living. I know that's how you've been living, and I'm not saying that you don't have any intentions and you don't have any, there's no practical to that. There absolutely is. But I'm talking about leading from spirit first, leading from guidance first, and then allowing your mind, your ego to implement the practical strategies to bring that inspiration forward. And that's a shift that we're in right now. That's because the way that we've been living is to think about how should I strategize, and you know how well that works. Left to our own devices, we're okay, most of us. But as soon as we remove that connection to that source within us that has created worlds, for goodness sakes. I mean, if I was going to partner with anyone, who better than to partner with the divine and to lead from that connection every single day. And some days you may be guided to rest. That was a hard one for me. As I've gone into meditation and asked, how can I best use my energy today? And I got rest. Rest? Are you kidding? Do you not understand I have a lot of things to do? Rest. If I don't do these things, who will? And, of course, the answer I get is I will. Seriously? You can't do the things, blah, 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 blah. And I realized, well, here's another place I create struggle and drama. by determining that in order for me to have what I really want, I have to be knee-deep in the experience to push that ball forward.
Well, and you brought up a really great thing there where a lot of people reverse what you just said. Instead of listening to Source and leading from that and going forward from Source and then putting your mind to work to strategize what Source is asking, a lot of people are always trying to strategize first. Well, let me strategize and then I'll listen to Source. But it doesn't really work that way because then it's like you say, who better to listen to, who better to start from? We have to start from Source, we return from Source, we see that in the cycle of everything in life. All things start and return to Source, and the cycle continues that way. And, it's just, it's the process. We have to be willing to believe, to create, to receive, to be open, then to be active, and then to rest and receive. And
we have to learn how to
just
trust.
Like the day and the night, trust each other that each one's going to take over and do their work, and that each one will return when its time is ready. Again, they don't sit there and go, "Are you going to let me come in at nighttime when it's my?" The moon doesn't say to the sun, "Are you going to let me in? Are you going to let me have my night today?" It just knows. It just knows that it's going to get that. Yeah,
and that's such an important point that we're talking about here, Jessie, is that this is the leading from our mind and our ego first has been a habit that humanity has been living from for centuries. And in this shift, we are switching positions as our hearts are opening, as our consciousness is being invited to become more open and to raise into higher states of understanding, and the presence inside of us is reaching for us as that veil of illusion is cracking. And whenever we're going through a transition period, there's a period of discomfort, of some fear and uncertainty, and it is a process, it is a journey of developing this relationship. I always tell people on calls and in my own life and in conversations, the most important relationship to be cultivating now, bar none, is the one that you have with whoever and whatever your relationship is with the divine, whatever name you use, to be cultivating this relationship as if it was your best friend. The presence will be whatever it is that you need it to be. And for some people, this is a new idea because of all the indoctrination that they have had about who and what God is. And in my experience, the more that I've opened up to this, and this is actually my second go-round, because when I had my spiritual earthquake, I had developed a very strong relationship with God. And then I don't know when it shifted or how it shifted that I lost that connection, and I've spent several years reestablishing that. And now, whenever I get quiet, and whenever I reach for that connection, it is a very palpable experience. It's a very emotional experience. I oftentimes have tears in my eyes, not from pain, but in that recognition of coming home to that part of myself is a very joyful reunion, and it becomes emotional, and there's an experience of expansion inside that I can feel. And I always kid people and say that I can feel that alignment with the divine when I get very articulate. And there are things that are coming out of my mouth, and it's like I'm standing back going, whoa, that was a good one. And many of you listening may have this experience, and the more that you fortify this relationship and the more that you start giving credibility to this relationship, the stronger it will get, like any muscle. And to think about having this be your intention every day and committing to that. You want to be coming from a place of authentic power. It's the relationship between your personality and your soul and the divine. And when you're imbalanced in this kind of a relationship, that's where you see magic happening. And who doesn't want to see magic?
Absolutely. And, excuse me, you know, and that discomfort I've found too is really Source's way of saying, let go of your control, release your control, and trust me. You know, it's not sitting there going, hey, let me see how uncomfortable I can make you, but let go and trust me. That's what it's about. And I find that, you know, also that strategizing mind goes back to the programmed messages that you were talking about too, that says you have to have a strategy before you can go anywhere. And that's an earthly concept. That's not a divine concept. So when the divine concept comes in and says, look, you don't have to sit in this discomfort. I don't want you to sit in this discomfort. Just let go and trust me. And I'll tell you, I had to do that, and I don't even think I could totally begin to describe what I've been through over the last 2 months in the process of doing that. And I sit in these spaces, and it's just like, okay, I'm just going to let go, and I'm trusting. I don't have to understand it all right now because I know I will at times. But, you know, I'm letting go, and I'm going to trust. And it's amazing. It can still be a scary process, that trust factor. But when you do it, it does come in. And as you say, you get more and more used to it. And you start to realize that when that comes up, oh, I'm supposed to let go and I'm supposed to trust now.
Right. There is a poem that I read many, many years ago. I've shared it. And it goes by a couple of different names, but the way that it came to me was Broken Dreams. And it goes like this: as children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend, I brought my broken dreams to God because He is my friend. But then, instead of leaving Him in peace to work alone, I hung around and tried to help with ways that were my own. At last, I snatched them back and cried, "How could you be so slow? My child," he said, "what could I do? You never did let go."
That's beautiful. It's beautifully put.
Yeah,
and it just reminds us.
It's a good reminder.
It is an excellent reminder that, you know, and I've said it to people many times, the divine is usually sitting right there ready to help you, but you're just not letting that. You're just not letting it in. And we don't like to admit that we're disconnected in that moment, or, you know, we're not opening that door because we feel like we're trying so hard to do it. And we feel like, but I am ready, you know. And it's like standing behind the closed door and somebody's knocking on the other side going, can I come in? Can I come in? And you're standing there going, I want you to come in, but you're not opening the door.
Yeah. What is interesting about that, just to, you know, layer on top of this, because I think it is so important, and that is from a point of efforting, and that is where when we start to experience things, let's say an emotion that is uncomfortable, and feelings are just feelings. They're not good or bad, right or wrong, but we have, in our interpretation of feelings, we have put some in different categories of good and bad and right and wrong and positive and negative, which is really not the best way to approach things. But, again, it's just another habit that we've gotten into of qualifying how we experience life. And when you can look at a feeling or a situation that is coming up and just breathe into it and rest into that without resisting, and even acknowledging when you might be in some resistance, and letting go of trying to calm yourself down and soothe yourself or come up with a solution, which is another way to take control, to try to push things, while God is just waiting until you stop or until you exhaust yourself so that help can come. So sometimes out of habit when we think that we're helping the situation. What we're actually doing is creating more resistance.
You know, as you were talking, what came to mind was the example of, you know, when you're riding a bike or a motorcycle or something like that, you have to lean into your turn when you're turning it. And if you lean into it, you go through that turn very smoothly. But if you try to sit up and you try to lean the other direction away from your turn, that's when you wipe out.
Yeah. And I have often used the example very similar to that is when you're first learning how to swim and maybe you were taught how to float. And if you just let the water buoy you up, you would be able to float. But if you flailed around, you would sink. So there are so many ways that we can look at how we create resistance, how we actually create more suffering and misery in an effort to assist the situation. We make it more difficult. And I think part of that has to do with, again, that feeling of distrust. If I don't do it, who will? And it's all up to me. I have to figure this out, or it's my life, so therefore I must do this, or this, or just any of the programming that we have about the way that we think things should be is not going to work anymore to be able to bring us the ease and grace that we are yearning for. So we have to be willing to say, this isn't working for me anymore. How do I need to do this differently? And be uncomfortable. Be okay in that discomfort. Find safety in certainty so that you can find out what the real truth is.
Absolutely. You know, I think that really is a big key. And it's a little bit different for everybody, what works for one person versus another. And that key of just acknowledging the fact of, is this working for me? Is it not working for me? If it's not working for me, I got to find a different approach here. I got to come at this from a different angle, or add a different component, or remove a component, or whatever it is. In the process, I've got to adjust something with it. So that is really, really rich.
One other thing that I wanted to add is to really be paying attention to what you might be holding on to that you know is not working and isn't any fun. I have been looking at some of the things that I've been doing in my business that I'm not having fun with anymore, and I'm having to let them go, because if you're not feeling excited about the things that you're engaged in, then that is going to translate to other forms of resistance, of feeling out of sync with the people and situations where you have your heart. And sometimes we'll hold on to something way beyond the point of completion because we're scared to be in that space of emptiness. If you don't let things clear out that are no longer serving you, then what is wanting to come in has no place. There's no room for that. So it's also about being okay in that place of emptiness and openness, trusting that by letting go, you are creating a more welcoming space for what's next that is ready to pour into your life that could be so wonderful and everything that you're wanting.
Yes. And I think that's a huge thing. That's something that we see in relationships a lot. You know, if we're disengaged from the relationship, we need to let go, from it. And, on a flip side to that, a key of something that we need to keep building and working with would be, like in my situation, for example, I have a week coming up where I don't have any venues scheduled. And it's like, oh, I want venues. I just so love and I'm so excited about being in the venues. And I just love that energy that's created there. It's just such a beautiful energy. And I feel like a part of me is missing in a way if I'm not there. So there are certain things like that can cue us in, but again, that also comes back to the attachments, is really looking at what are we feeling overly attached to. As much as I love doing the venues and I'm excited about them and engaged about them, I'll also take that week that I don't have anything scheduled and go, great, this gives me an opportunity to do something else right now too. And, I'm not so attached to the venues that I'm going to go into a deep, dark depression if I'm not there.
That's a great point, and that's something that I've also been looking at as I have slowed down, and in comparison to how active and busy I had been in the past. And on the one hand, really loving the engagement and the interaction when I'm working with groups and clients on some of the things that we've been talking about on this conversation that is juicy for me, that is just food for my heart that I love. And then on the other hand, there are moments when I stop and I feel this very deep exhaustion. So as I'm asking for more of what I'm loving, it's also about finding the balance between not wanting to work so hard. So getting clear on what it is that you're putting out. I want this and I want that, and I want the balance between the two so that I'm not piling my plate up with so much busyness that I get to a point of exhaustion where I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. And, I think that's part of asking that question, what is it that I really, really want, and getting so clear on that so that what you're putting out to the universe is also clear. Like during the course of the day, one of the things that's really fun for me is to turn on the TV and watch The Voice. 3 o'clock. I love that show, and if I wasn't able to catch it in prior times, I would have said, this is a work day. This is not getting up and going to the movies. I will do stuff like that and not feel guilty about that, because when I am happy, I bring that joy into what I'm doing. And, for people like us who have our own businesses, we don't work 9 to 5. We don't work Monday through Friday. Work is not work. Work is joyful. We can work 7 days a week because it brings us pleasure, and have periods of fun interspersed. That could be what 1 week looks like. So the way that you create your life can look like anything and still have a lot of meaning and prosperity and value and fun. It can have all of that. You get to decide how you create it. You get to live it on your own terms.
And I think, too, when we honor those rest periods, like I'm going to be doing somewhat over the next week. I mean, there's always certain things to get done, but it's also realizing that because that excitement and that engagement is there, that I'm going to be that much more excited going into the next venue, because it's like, man, I'm so ready to do it again. And it's important that I take my time to get my lessons so that I have more to share with people. If I don't take my breaks off of doing the venues, I'm not always getting, the next set of lessons, because I'm not taking that time to be conscious for myself as much when I'm focused on everybody else and what I'm providing them in that process. So it is a balance. Now, Lorraine, you have an exercise for us, and we're kind of winding down, and I want to give you enough time to do that exercise. And so I want to let you go ahead and explain what you're going to do and go right on through with that.
Okay. More than an exercise, I'm going to invite you to do a guided process with me. And if you do hear that there's any kind of background noise, I think that Jessie might be able to mute out her end.
I'm gonna mute out my end during it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Isn't that wonderful that you can do that? That is so
I love
good.
That
because
I can
if
do
I
that.
was well, if I was doing the call and I was doing the guided process from where you're at, I wouldn't be able to do that. So that's really wonderful. So I am just going to invite you to have an experience that will be divinely guided. I have nothing really scripted, and for those of you who are sensitive to energy, you will likely feel the presence moving through this process. So we're going to go ahead and get started.
Right, and I'm going to mute.
Go ahead. Okay, great. So first I want to thank you for making yourself a priority and for taking time out to join us in listening to this conversation. It's an act of self-love, so give yourself a hug for that. So what I invite you to do now is to put your attention on your breath and gently bring your breath up from your belly, breathing in through your nose, holding that breath briefly, and with your exhalation, stretching your body, your hands, your legs, and if there's any sound that wants to be released, go ahead and let that happen. And let's take another nice, deep breath, bringing your whole body into this intake of breath, bringing that breath up once again from your belly, stretching your body, and holding it briefly, and then with an exhale, see again if there's any sound that wants to be released. Feels good, doesn't it? Let's take one more nice, deep breath. And this time, as you breathe, really bring that breath to the outer edges of your lungs. Feel your lungs expanding to capacity. Get your whole body involved in this intake of breath, and then allowing your breath to be released. Beautiful. And now imagining in your mind, or in whatever way you experience this, bringing your attention several feet above your head, where your higher self, your higher nature, where that consciousness is. And allowing yourself to make a connection with this presence. And seeing or sensing a column of golden light from that presence down to the top of your head. And inviting this divine higher nature to bring its consciousness down that column of light, beginning to move into the top of your head. And with your breath in a very easy rhythm, inviting the presence to bring its consciousness down into your body, into every cell, to every atom, your organs, your bones, your muscles, your blood. You may see or sense a beautiful warmth of love expanding within your physical body. And now expanding into your outer bodies, as if you are being wrapped in the energies of divine love. And now holding the intention of bringing the presence and love into your multidimensional bodies in all time, space, and dimension. And resting into this connection for a moment that may feel familiar, perhaps it's a little new for you. This presence that lives in you, through you, and as you that just adores you, that knows everything about you and loves everything about you. This presence that sees you clearly has been with you in every experience you have ever had in your life. Reminding you in this moment that you are never alone, that you never will be alone. Being open to this experience of what unconditional love is, perhaps in a way you never have before. Just notice how open you can be to this energy. And let go of any resistance that you may have. Giving yourself permission to surrender into the embrace of this divine presence that is you. Feel yourself resting in this energy. Noticing the sensations in your body. Notice the thoughts that you might be having. Notice your breath as you breathe into this experience of reconnection. Perhaps it feels like coming home, home to a deeper truth of who you really are. This is a precious relationship and a precious time of reconnection. All of your desires are known. All of your deepest fears and concerns are known. And there is a wanting and a yearning for you to know that every person and situation in your life has come to help you heal, to grow, to evolve into the highest version of who you are meant to be. And your success is guaranteed when you have the courage, the willingness to go the distance. Everything that you need will rally towards your victory. You will not walk this path alone. Breathe this truth into your body. Breathe into the resonance of what you know in your heart is true, and perhaps you have denied, that you are more powerful than you have ever realized, that your life is meant to be happy and rich and full of grace, not one of struggle, suffering, and pain. And within yourself, I invite you to say the following phrases, either within yourself or out loud. I am the power and presence of God. I am the power and presence of God. I am the power and presence of God. I feel the presence within me. I feel the power surging through me. I claim this power. I stand in this power. I am one with this power. I am ready. I am willing. To have the greatest life I could ever imagine. Manifesting for me now. And take a moment to breathe into that energy of your intention and declaration. And as you rest in this energy, I'm prompted to share a prayer as one of my favorites from Debbie Ford, who was an incredible light in this world that the world truly misses. And the prayer is called Drenched in Holiness. Dear God, Spirit, Divine Mother, on this day I ask you to grant this request. May I know who I am and what I am every moment of every day. May I be a catalyst for light and love and bring inspiration to those whose eyes I meet. May I have the strength to stand tall in the face of conflict and the courage to speak my voice even when I'm scared. May I have the humility to follow my heart and the passion to live my soul's desires. May I seek to know the highest truth and dismiss the gravitational pull of my lower self. May I embrace and love the totality of myself, my darkness as well as my light. And may I be brave enough to hear my heart, to let it soften, so that I may gracefully choose faith over fear. Today is my day to surrender anything that stands between the sacredness of my humanity and my divinity. May I be drenched in my holiness and engulfed by God. May all else melt away, and so it is. I got the chills as I read that, and that's one of the ways that I experience resonance is when I get the chills. Maybe you did as well. So breathe those words into the cells of your body, into all of you. Rest in what resonated as truth for you. Embrace that prayer as an intention going forward if that feels right for you. And gently, in your own time, begin by taking 5 deep breaths and bringing your attention to a fully conscious state of room awareness, opening your eyes alert and refreshed. And if you need to take a little bit longer than 5 breaths, go ahead and take 10. And then opening your eyes as you feel ready. And as you are bringing your attention back, also imagine the energies of the earth coming up the balls of your feet and grounding and anchoring you into your body and into this present moment as you open your eyes.
All I can say is wow.
Thank you. And, you know, it's so funny because I had something else on my mind, and I always say to people, I do these unscripted. You've probably experienced this. I thought it was going to go one way. It went totally different. And that's one of the things that I really love with, you know, being on these calls and creating these experiences is that the presence comes through and just guides the whole process, and it's always very humbling and very awe-inspiring. So is there anything that you want to share that you were able to in the environment that you were in? You're probably good at closing it off.
Well, you know, it really, everything that you had in that guided process really covered everything that we talked about, interestingly enough. And, you know, I think that so many people have either struggled or have not taken the time to do that conscious claiming the power and presence of God within them. And to stand one with that energy and to realize that is our true self. That really is who we are. And, you know, we forget that in this human existence. And to really put that focus to being a catalyst of light and love, and that's what I've done on this journey of mine. And it really has been, wow. I mean, just you know, to open up to that just brings this huge growth from the heart space for me, anyways. And where you brought in the aspect of loving the darkness as well as the light within ourselves and realizing that that is part of our wholeness, and that it's not the darkness in the sense of trying to destroy us, but sometimes we have to destroy or to clear things out in order to move forward. So we do have to use that energy, and that energy is equally as divine in its own way, depending on how it's used, as the light itself, when we come to really understand that. So really, really beautiful. Lorraine, I want to mention here, because we haven't mentioned it yet, and I do want to give you a chance to give people your contact information. But you are part of a beautiful project that's going on, as am I, which is Embraced by the Divine. And we want people to be aware that this is something that's coming out. We're co-authors on this book. And it is really sharing these incredible stories, as we've been sharing in the show today, about breaking through what would be considered the dark night of the soul, or the hardships and the challenges. And I encourage people to connect with us on Facebook through that page, as well as our own personal pages. And I'll give you a minute to say something about that and to give people your contact information, because that's an incredible project to be a part of.
Thank you so much. And yes, I am so proud to be a part of this project with you and all of the other incredible women who have said yes to sharing their very candid and very raw stories, which I think is so important for us to be sharing our life experiences of moving through some of the trials and the difficulties that are happening for so many people right now. and disclosing how we were able to move through it, to come to a higher understanding, to come to health, to come to courage, to come to passion, to heal death, and that gives us hope, and it also gives us some strategies to be able to navigate those periods of transition and transformation. And I'm so excited that we're going to be. It looks like the book, at least the Kindle part of the book, is going to be out in February of 2015. And if folks go onto Facebook and just Google Embraced by the Divine, or go to embracedbythedivine.com, we have a free gift right now that's available. Go ahead and do that, and then join us on Facebook. You can Google Embraced by the Divine. I'm not sure if it's Embraced by the Divine book, but you'll be able to find that page. And I'm so excited to hear the experiences that people have when they have an opportunity to read some of the stories. I think it will give a lot of people a lot of courage, a lot of hope, a lot of ideas of how they can turn their own challenges into triumph. You can
I think you're very accurate. I think you're very accurate on that, because I think one of the things that's what's really going to bring out is to help people realize they're not alone, and that somebody else has been through that process that they're going through.
Yes. And we are also available to help anybody who realizes that they need some help. I am certainly available. In fact, this is the work that I've been doing for almost 30 years, is this deeper inner transformational work and the heart healing work that we describe in these books has been the essence of the work that I do. And I have seen people just break through incredible barriers, things that they have been struggling with for years and years and years, and realizing that some of the reason why they've been struggling with for so long has been because of how they've been in resistance. And when you have the keys and the processes to help you to move through some of these shadows and some of these blocks, it's amazing that you find out that it's not like you imagined, and that you have a lot more grace and a lot more power to be able to heal yourself. And when you heal yourself, you're helping to transform the world. You can learn more about my work by going to LorraineCohen.com. That's LorraineCohen. I have lots of audios. There's a program that I just launched that I'll be launching again in probably February of next year, which is called Authentic Power and Joy. It is by far the most powerful program I have ever offered, and I think it is going to be one of those signature experiences that will be creating more and more breakthroughs for people. I'm just watching what's happening for people in the first, second, and third weeks, and it's just jaw-dropping how people are really busting through a lot of blocks and coming back into more love, joy, ease, grace in their lives, and I'm excited to see where that will go in 2015. There's also some heart healing calls that I have done over the course of the year on a variety of different topics that are very, very powerful, all with processes. Everything that I'm doing right now has energy processes, like what you've experienced on the call, energy activations, where you can feel the presence of the divine guiding this process. So I invite you to look around my site, look at some of the programs that I offer, some of the audio collections that are some of the most powerful audios I've ever created. And if you'd like some support in walking on your own journey, it would be my absolute honor to partner with you and support you in any way that you might need. And if you join my newsletter, you'll get a free guided meditation. If you like the one that I did, you'll get that, and you'll have the opportunity to hear about some of the special events and some goodies that I'll be doing going forward. And who doesn't like presents?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's part of receiving. We got to learn how to receive.
That's right. That's so true.
And Lorraine, it really has been a pleasure to have you on the show today, sharing your work, sharing this visualization, or I should say guided process.
Thank you.
with us, and I know that this is going to get shared out to a lot of people that will come back and listen to this over and over again in our archives, because it's one of those things that you can come back to, and it was such a beautiful presentation of it, and a beautiful way to help us stay connected, especially through the challenges as well as the good times in here. But
Jessie,
I am in gratitude.
Yeah. Well, not to interrupt you, I didn't mean to do that. I really want to thank you for. Well, yes, I guess I did mean to do that. I really want to thank you for making it possible for you and I to have this conversation. You were very gracious in extending an invitation to me when you were doing the calls at the midnight hour, which didn't work for me. And it was such a pleasure meeting you in person when you came through my area. And now having this chance to talk with you more and be a part of your radio program is such a delight for me. So I thank you for making it work so that you and I could play a little more together today.
I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And thank you. And, it really has been a pleasure to have Lorraine on the show. If you've missed any part of it, do make sure that you go back and check it in the archive. Next week, I will have Linda Diffenbach on my show, sharing her work with embracing the goddess energy and working with the sacred feminine. And we're going to be delving into why and how that is important for men as much as it is for women. And she also is going to be delving into some aspects related to trauma and how to work through trauma and the value and what that is playing in our life right now in these days and time. I, again, still have a few events left for the 2014 tour. You can check those out on my website, as well as videos that are being put out, which I do every month, products, services, monthly special, all of that stuff you can find on my website, Jessie Ann Nichols George, #1.com. There's a great section on there for Main Street Universe, and you can follow all of our hosts and catch upcoming shows as well as our archive shows and learn a little more about the people that are on the network here. Again, Lorraine's website is www.lorrainecohen.com. That link is at the bottom of the show description for you. And, the November special that I have running right now is if you participate in any full 1 or 2 day weekend event before the end of 2014, I will provide you with a free 1 hour coaching session. I mean, that is a huge, huge deal. I mean, that almost pretty much pays for the weekend right there and there. So it's definitely something to take advantage of, and you don't have to use the coaching session right away. You can save it and use it, a month or 2 months later or whatever works for you in that process. But it's a great opportunity. It's a great gift for somebody as well if you want to do that. And don't forget, we do have several shows here on Main Street Universe throughout the week. Sunday nights, we have Darren Bouquet, who's a reader at Madame Laveau in New Orleans, doing spiritual insights. Monday nights is Randy Goldberg doing Vedic astrology. Tuesdays, we have Susan Weed sharing her work in herbs and natural plants. Wednesday nights, we have Daniel and Denise on our flagship show, Main Street Universe. Sometimes they have guests. Sometimes they're doing readings. Sometimes they're addressing different topics. Thursdays and Saturdays, we now have a rotation of shows going on. So every week it's going to be a different show. There'll be 4 different shows coming up on Thursdays, 4 different shows happening on Saturday, a whole variety of areas that are happening with that. So that's going to be fun to tune into. And, of course, Kevin Baird will be a part of that, and you can check out his work with the Horizon Oracle Journeys deck, and he's also one of the keys who originated developing Main Street Universe along with Daniel Michaels. So that's great to see his work. You can check out his deck at templeofgaia.com. And then, of course, on Fridays we have Activating Compassion Radio. And I know my time is shifting around, and eventually we'll probably settle back into a regular time slot again, but I really appreciate everybody being flexible with me while I've been on the road the last couple of months here and making all of these adjustments. Hey, this is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I want to thank you so much for being here with me today. And again, thank you to all of our listeners, not only on Blog Talk Radio, but also those that are listening through our streaming live channels, 10, known as Prayer Encounters Network, StreamFinder, and TalkStream Live, as well as those catching our podcasts at iTunes and TuneIn.com, and those catching the YouTube version of our show. I definitely look forward to seeing you back here next week as we delve more into activating compassion. So don't forget, if you've enjoyed the show today, share it with others. It's going to be available at the same link in our archives. And I'm going to leave you with the song Yearning For, also known as Over and Over by Shemshai. And again, you can check out their work at www.shemshai.com. That's SHIMSHAI.com. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again next week right here on Activating Compassion Radio. May you enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a truly amazing week.
And if I could see what makes me blind, I would soar to the edge of my mind, and to touch what seems unreal, just to show you the way that I feel. And we are in time with time, one with the season of change inside. And we are in tune with the tune, caught in a balance of sun and moon. Oh, deep inside, the light within, shining to show you it's here to begin. When all I have is all I need, I will soar to the edge of eternity. And we see it eye to eye, one within love to be for the divine. And we're walking hand in hand, caught in the balance of God and man. Over and over, life is your lover, learning to walk just a little bit slower, whispering secrets, but that you can't keep it. No turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence within the most beautiful lover. Time is still turning, the love is still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart still yearning for. Just a little bit slower, whispering secrets that you can't still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart still yearning for. Yearning for.